There's a version of you that's already living the life you keep dreaming about. But to become them, you'd have to burn everything safe. You'd have to walk away from the job that drains your soul but pays your rent. You'd have to let go of the relationships that feel warm but keep you small. You'd have to admit that comfort has become a prison and that you're the one locking the door every night. Most people will never change, not because they don't want to, but because they're terrified of losing what they already have, even if what they have is killing them slowly. And here's the truth that no one wants to admit. You cannot create the life you want without destroying the one you built to survive. That's why you hesitate. That's why you scroll. That's why you consume motivation but never act. Because on some level, you know that real change doesn't feel inspiring at first. It feels like grief. It feels like standing on the edge of a cliff with everything behind you burning and nothing in front of you but fog. It feels like walking away from good enough with no guarantee that great will ever show up. It feels like losing the version of you that kept everyone else comfortable. But the version of you that is free, the one who wakes up with purpose, speaks with fire, and lives without apology, they're waiting for you, but they're not in the life you're living now. They only exist in the one you're brave enough to create. And before we go any further, ask yourself this: would you rather be safe or would you rather be free? Most people don't realize this, but the life they're living right now wasn't created consciously. It was assembled piece by piece out of fear, pressure, desperation, and survival. You chose the job because it was stable, not because it made you feel alive. You stayed in the relationship because being wanted felt better than being alone. You played it safe because every time you tried to be bold, someone made you feel foolish. So you stopped. You folded in. You shrunk yourself until you fit inside the expectations the world had for you. And over time, something strange happened. You started calling it your life, even though you never really chose it. You dressed it up with convenience and distraction, weekend plans, scrolling marathons, passive dreams, occasional bursts of hope. But it never quite felt right. It never felt like yours. Because deep down, you know what thriving feels like. You've tasted it in fleeting moments. The trip you almost canceled, but ended up remembering forever. The project you poured your soul into, even when no one asked you to. The person who made you feel like you didn't have to hide anything. In those moments, you weren't surviving. You were being. You were free. But survival is seductive. It whispers, just hold on a little longer. It says, this is fine. Don't be ungrateful. It tricks you into believing that having a job, a roof, and a few likes is enough. It trains you to numb your instincts, dismiss your intuition, and silence the part of you that dares to want more. But here's the danger. The longer you survive a life that doesn't fulfill you, the harder it is to remember that you were ever meant for something else. You begin to internalize the belief that dreaming is childish, that change is reckless, and that risk is selfish. You start envying people who made bold moves while convincing yourself that they were just lucky. You resent them, not because they have more, but because they reminded you of what you gave up. The truth is, the life you built was never meant to carry your highest self. It was designed by the lowest version of you, the one who was afraid, unsure, insecure, and exhausted. And that version of you made trade-offs. They said yes to comfort instead of growth. They chose silence over confrontation. They chased safety instead of purpose. And that's okay. That version of you did the best they could. They got you here, but they can't take you further. Because the life that truly belongs to you, the one that makes you feel powerful, purposeful, and alive, is going to demand a different version of you. It's going to require the version that's willing to burn bridges, set boundaries, speak up, walk away, and disappoint everyone else just to finally tell yourself the truth. And here's that truth. You cannot change your life without betraying the person you were when you built it. You will outgrow people. You will have to disappoint family. You will lose money. You will make mistakes. You will be scared and uncertain and judged and misunderstood. But on the other side of that, you'll finally meet yourself, not the version of you that adapted to survive, but the version that was buried beneath all that pretending. And once you meet that version of you, the one that doesn't flinch when challenged, the one that feels at home in their skin, the one that doesn't beg to be chosen, you'll realize you never needed the life you're trying so hard to hold on to. You needed the courage to let it go. Fear doesn't always show up screaming. It's not always panic attacks and trembling hands and cold sweats. Most of the time, fear whispers calmly. It wears a suit. It uses big words like responsibility, practicality, and good judgment. It tells you to think things through, to be realistic, to wait a little longer until it's safer, until it's clearer, until it's perfect. But let me ask you this. How many times have you waited your way out of the life you actually wanted? You waited because the timing wasn't right. You waited because someone else needed you. You waited because you didn't want to disappoint your parents, your boss, your friends, your partner. You waited because you were scared to start over. And now you're here, watching time pass, convincing yourself that maybe you never wanted it that badly in the first place. But the truth is, it's not that you didn't want it. It's that you didn't believe you were allowed to want it more than you feared losing what you already had. Fear is clever like that. It makes you feel guilty for wanting more. It makes you ashamed of your hunger. It twists your desire into a flaw and wraps shame around your ambition. It convinces you that the person who risks everything is reckless instead of brave. It tells you that dreaming big is delusional instead of necessary, and so you settle. You become the dependable one, the predictable one, the one who's always there for everyone else but never really shows up for yourself. You play your role in the play you didn't write and applaud yourself for staying in character. But one day, the applause fades, the crowd leaves, and you're alone, wondering how you ended up so far from the life that used to keep you up at night with excitement instead of anxiety. You see, fear doesn't take your dreams in one violent moment. It eats them slowly, in the form of decisions that look wise from the outside, but feel like dying on the inside. And the worst part? People will praise you for it. They'll call you smart. They'll say you're doing the right thing. They'll admire your sacrifice, but none of them will feel what you feel at 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling and wondering what could have happened if you had just taken the leap. You have to understand this. Fear will not stop chasing you, but you can stop running from your truth. And your truth is this. You are not made to live a quiet, regretful life that ends in a long list of what-ifs. You were not put here to shrink, settle, or suppress the fire that keeps trying to rise inside of you. You were put here to risk, to build, to lose and start again, to live, not just exist. So no, walking away from what's comfortable isn't irrational. It's not immature. It's not selfish. It's sacred. It's a declaration that you refuse to betray yourself for the illusion of stability, that you'd rather be scared and growing than safe and slowly dying, that the only approval you're chasing now is your own. And maybe the people around you won't understand. Maybe they'll say you've changed, but what they don't realize is you're not changing. You're finally becoming who you were before the world told you who to be. People often say they're waiting for a sign, waiting for certainty, waiting until they figure things out. But what they don't understand is this: clarity is a reward for courage, not a prerequisite. You don't get the answers before the leap. You get them because of the leap. But we've been taught to approach life like a checklist. Have a plan. Stick to the plan. Don't make a move unless you're 100% sure. Only then will you be successful, respected, happy. So we wait, we research, we plan, we overthink. And the fire inside us? It starts dying under the weight of perfect logic. But the truth is, sometimes you have to set fire to the life you built without knowing exactly what will rise from the ashes. You have to trust the part of you that doesn't speak in words, but in knowing, that gut feeling, that ache in your chest when you think about your dream, that sharp pain of resentment every time you agree to something that isn't meant for you. That's your soul knocking, not with a roadmap, but with a matchstick. And most people ignore it because it's easier to stay in a life that's not that bad than to risk the unknown. But let me ask you something. When did not that bad become an acceptable way to live? When did you trade wonder for routine? When did you silence your imagination just to survive another work week? We all want signs. We want flashing lights and divine confirmations. But most signs don't look like miracles. They look like discomfort. They look like burnout. They look like tears in the shower after a long day of pretending. They look like jealousy when you see someone else living the life you were too afraid to chase. They look like resentment toward people who didn't play it safe. And that resentment, that discomfort, that ache, that is the sign. It's the universe telling you that the path you're on has expired, that the role you've been playing has served its purpose, and now it's time to step off the stage. But stepping off means stepping into the unknown, and that's where most people freeze. Because the unknown doesn't come with guarantees. It comes with silence, with space, with questions. But what they don't tell you is this: that space is sacred, because inside that space, you remember who you were before the world convinced you to play small. Inside that space, you get to rebuild, not just a better life, but a truer one. One that doesn't require you to perform. One that doesn't require you to betray your instincts. One that doesn't require you to hide. But you can't enter that space if you're still clutching the wreckage of what no longer fits. You have to let it burn. The job, the mask, the version of you that everyone claps for, but that you secretly resent. You're allowed to leave it behind. You're allowed to want something different, even if it scares you. You're allowed to say, I don't know exactly what comes next, but I know it can't be this. Because the life you want is out there, but it's waiting on the other side of destruction. And if you never let the fire start, you'll never see what's trying to rise from the ruins. You keep asking, when will it happen? When will the breakthrough come? When will the opportunity finally show up? When will someone notice you, believe in you, choose you? But that's the wrong question. The real question is, who do I need to become so I can hold the life I claim to want? You see, the life you dream of isn't just something you receive. It's something you earn, not through effort alone, but through transformation. You don't attract the life you want by clinging to the identity that's afraid to want it. You have to become the version of you who is ready for it. And that's where most people fail, not because they don't have potential, but because they're unwilling to let go of who they were. They want the reward, but not the death. They want the outcome, but not the sacrifice. They want to be reborn, but they don't want to die. But every new life begins with the death of the old one. If you want deeper relationships, you have to stop being emotionally unavailable. If you want purpose, you have to stop saying yes to things that hollow you out. If you want freedom, you have to let go of the lies you told yourself to feel safe. You cannot take everything with you. Some dreams require you to empty your hands before you can receive. Some versions of you cannot come on the next part of the journey, and it will hurt. It will feel like abandonment, like chaos, like loss. Because becoming who you are meant to be isn't just about adding things. It's about removing everything that was never truly you to begin with. It's shedding years of conditioning. It's disappointing the people who benefited from your silence. It's unlearning the behaviors that once protected you, but now prevent you from evolving. And most painfully, it's admitting that you've outgrown the life you built to survive. There is a moment in everyone's life when they realize that the walls they once built for protection have become the very thing that keeps them trapped. And in that moment, you have a choice. You can decorate the cage, or you can break it open and walk into the unknown. But if you do choose to walk out, don't expect applause. The people around you may not understand. They'll say you're being dramatic. They'll tell you to be grateful. They'll remind you of how far you've come and beg you not to throw it all away. But they don't feel what you feel. They don't hear the silent scream in your chest. They don't know what it costs you every day to keep playing small. You are the only one who can feel when your soul has started to suffocate. You are the only one who can decide if the life you're living is a prison or a path. And when you finally choose to break free, not gently, not politely, but completely, the world starts to rearrange itself. It doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't come with instant reward. But slowly you begin to attract different conversations. You make braver choices. You walk with a different kind of energy. And eventually the life that once felt impossible becomes the only one that makes sense. Not because it appeared out of thin air, but because you became the person who no longer tolerates anything less. And in that moment, when the dust clears and the fear fades, you'll look back at the version of you who was once terrified to let go, and you'll whisper, "Thank you for being brave enough to burn it all down." Most people will never live the life they want, not because they weren't capable, not because they didn't have talent or time, but because they couldn't let go of the life they already had. They confused comfort with happiness. They mistook safety for meaning. They waited and waited until there was nothing left to wait for. But if you've watched this far, you're not like most people. You feel it, that pull, that quiet voice that says, "There's more for me than this." And maybe you don't know what the next step is. Maybe you're scared, unsure, overwhelmed. That's okay. You don't have to rebuild your life overnight. You just have to stop pretending that you're satisfied with one that doesn't reflect who you really are. So if something inside you is screaming to break free, listen to it. If a part of you knows you've been playing small, honor it. Your future self is watching, and they are begging you to be bold. Because the life you want, it's not a fantasy. It's real. It's waiting. But only if you're willing to leave behind everything that was only meant to be temporary.